Hey y'all, it's Jennifer. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am coming to you with my Febregency TBR. So this is going to be a relatively small TBR in the hopes of actually accomplishing everything on it. But as is my trend with the year, we're just being flexible. We're getting to what we can. If we don't get to it, that's okay too. But I had several things that were on my TBR last year that I have folded over into this year because in 2022, I just was in such a huge reading slump that I essentially did not read for Febregency. So part of me just wanted to roll over my entire TBR from last year and just looking at my options. But another part of me acknowledges that I am not going to read a 600-page Gothic novel this month. So let's go on and get into my TBR. Our first prompt is to read a work of poetry, and I, as always, have so many options. This is the prompt for me that is the most open and is the one that I'm going to be the most flexible with. I'm going to allow myself to read whatever I want because I'll probably read more than one poet if we're honest. But the one that I'm going to be focusing on this time around is my king, Percy Shelley. It's been a really long time since I delved into any Shelley, and I feel like it's really time to get back into him. And so I feel like I'm really going to enjoy spending time with him this month. And I thought maybe it might be for the best to choose a poet that I really wanted to theme my month around and a poet that I really wanted to spend time with rather than just going all over the place, though that's what my natural inclination is to do. But if I do choose just one poet, it's going to be Shelley. I'm really high on Shelley right now because I'm currently reading The Villa by Rachel Hawkins, which is in part a retelling of the night that Percy, Mary Shelley, and Lord Byron spent together in Switzerland, where Mary Shelley came up with Frankenstein. And so I have been really wanting to read some romantic literature because of that book, and I have specifically been wanting to read Shelley. So Shelley is the poet that I'm putting on my list. I don't have anything in particular from him that I'm looking forward to. There are several longer works of his that have been haunting me for a long time that I really need to get around to. And so I would kind of like to focus on maybe one or two of his longer poems, but I also really enjoy his short poetry. So I'm excited to delve into that too. And I think that will be a really great goal. My goal is to read a little bit of poetry every day in Febregency because I get so much out of romantic poetry. So I think my goal is also just going to be to read a little bit maybe out of this collection every day in the month. For the prompt to read a play, I am also going to be reading Percy Shelley. I'm going to be reading the Cenci. This is one of the works that was on my TBR last year that I felt like I really needed to fold over into this year. And I'm really looking forward to this because the Cenci is set in the Italian Renaissance. This is a really famous story of crime in the Italian Renaissance, and I have never read Percy Shelley's version of it. The interesting thing is, I do feel like I'm cheating a little bit here by putting this for the play prompt, but the Cenci was never designed to be put on. And I also had Manfred as an option by Lord Byron. And that also is a play that technically was never put on, though I guess you could have. But a lot of times the Romantics were writing plays that were just by design long form poetry. And so I'm excited about this. This will be the first play that I've read by Percy Shelley, and it's easily the thing that I'm looking forward to reading the most this month. In terms of nonfiction, I really wanted to read nonfiction that was written during the Regency era. And so for that, I'm going to be reading William Hazlitt. This is also kind of an open prompt for me because I have just a collection of his selected writings. But William Hazlitt was a critic both of literature and of art in the late early 1800s. And so I am looking forward to this because one of the delights for me of last year was actually reading some art criticism during Victober, and I found that I really enjoy reading Victorian nonfiction, so I think that I'll probably really enjoy Regency nonfiction. I think William Hazlitt also has quite a bit of writing about Napoleon, which I know will really fascinate me, and I'm really looking forward to getting into this. So this is one that I will dip in and out of because a lot of this is short, so I hope to get through this pretty quickly. My goal is not to spend time in this every day the way that it is with poetry, but I would like to read at least one essay or one piece of writing from this every week in the month. For the prompt, something that was referenced by Jane Austen or something that was an influence on her, I am going to be reading one of the 9 Gothic novels that were referenced in Northanger Abbey. And I think in Northanger Abbey, they're called like horrid novels. And for a long time, the list of novels that were named in Northanger Abbey were actually thought to be fictional, which I think is really, really funny that we had forgotten about most of these titles until somebody in the late 20th century finally did some research and found out that they were all real books. I got really lucky. I found a Kindle collection of every book that was mentioned in Northanger Abbey, including the Mysteries of Udolpho. And that is one that has haunted me for many, many years. It has been on many TBRs. I recognize Febregency and maybe just a readathon in general is not the right time for me to pick up Anne Radcliffe. But several of these horrid novels are very, very short. And so I want to read one that is called The Necromancer. And this sounds really good. I think it's inspired by German folklore, and it seems weirdly enough like the majority of these horrid novels are somehow German inspired. It seems like that was a theme in the late 18th century to set a Gothic novel in Germany. I know that generally Gothic novels tended to be set in exotic locations in places like France, Germany, Italy, things that were not out your backyard there in England. And I've always found that fascinating because in the modern day, I think we often associate Gothic tales with England. And so I really think that's interesting, but I'm really excited about The Necromancer just because it does sound like it's going to be German in theme, and it's also supernatural. I think it is 1 out of 2 of all of the 9 books listed that is actually supernatural in nature. And so that really thrills me. I'm really looking forward to that. I think there's probably a reason why we have forgotten about these books. There's probably not a lot to them. I think there's a reason why Anne Radcliffe is the Gothic writer who has really stood the test of time. But I am going to go into this open-minded. I'm going to go into it searching for a good time, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to at least enjoy it. And so I will let y'all know how that goes. My ultimate goal is to read all 9 of them. I know it won't happen this month, but that's been a goal of mine for a long time, to read all of the books that were mentioned in Northanger Abbey. I really did, though, want to read another Gothic novel that's a little bit more famous. And so I have settled on the Private Memoirs and Confessions of a Justified Sinner by James Hogg. And this is a very interesting text that I think I'm going to have a very contentious relationship with, but I am looking forward to trying it. I'm going to try it and just see how it goes. A lot of people really hate this, and I think I can understand why. I think there's a lot of religious discussions in here. I think this is in some ways also a take on the Faust myth. And another contender for me this month was Melmoth the Wanderer, which is very clearly a Faustian retelling. And that is one that I'm really drawn to as well. It's really between the 2 of them here. But the Private Memoirs and Confessions of a Justified Sinner is another that I think I have put on several TBRs, and I just think it's time. I really enjoy the religious conversations that were happening during the Regency and the Romantic eras, and I think it's just generally fascinating. So I'm excited to see that explored in fiction. But I will be interested to see how this goes, because this seems like a book that people either love or hate. And so I think it's probably going to be one that I struggle with, but I am going to give it a try. So that is my Febregency TBR. I would love to know down below if you have read any of these, and I would love to know what you were planning on reading in Febregency this year. But that is going to be all for me today. I hope you're all having a great week. Happy reading. Goodbye.